Listen closely, Libra. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because if you found this message today, it's not by accident. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly seen, not needed, not tolerated, but understood? You've been holding everything together, keeping the peace, swallowing the truth so no one else has to feel uncomfortable. And somewhere along the way, you started disappearing from your own life. This message isn't here to scare you. It's here because someone knows you've reached a quiet breaking point, the kind you don't talk about, the kind you carry alone. So take a breath, stay with me for a moment, and trust this. What's about to unfold was meant to find you today, more than ever. You don't need to answer me out loud. Just stay here. Let the noise fade for a second. There are messages that don't arrive with signs or warnings. They don't knock, they don't shout. They arrive quietly, when your shoulders feel heavier than usual, when you sigh without realizing why, when the world keeps asking things of you, and you no longer know how to explain what you're carrying. That's when messages like this find you. And Libra, I'm not speaking to everyone right now. I'm speaking to you, the one who paused, the one who didn't scroll past, the one who felt something tighten in their chest and thought, why does this feel personal? Because you've been listening your whole life, listening to what others need, listening to what feels fair, listening to what keeps the balance intact. But lately, have you noticed how quiet it's become inside you? You've learned how to stay calm in the middle of emotional storms, how to smooth things over, how to hold space so others don't fall apart. And you do it so naturally that people forget it costs you something every single time. You don't complain, you don't make scenes, you adjust, you soften your edges, you wait. And maybe no one ever taught you that silence can be a form of survival. Not peace. Survival. There's a moment, Libra, when silence stops protecting you and starts erasing you. You may not have words for it yet. You just feel it. A tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. A distance from things that used to matter. A strange sense that you're standing slightly outside your own life. And here's the part no one tells you. You didn't get lost, you didn't fail, you didn't misread the signs. You stayed too long in places that asked you to be smaller, so everything else could stay comfortable. That's not weakness, that's endurance. But endurance isn't meant to be permanent. This message didn't come to wake you up with fear. It came to sit beside you. To say, quietly, I see how much you've been holding. And maybe you're wondering, just for a second, what it would feel like to stop explaining yourself, to stop balancing everyone else's emotions, to choose clarity over harmony. What if the stillness you're feeling right now isn't emptiness, but a doorway? Stay with me. There's more unfolding beneath the surface. And what comes next isn't about losing anything you love. It's about remembering yourself before you learned how to disappear. You've always known how to read a room, Libra, before anyone speaks, before tension has a name. You feel it in your body first. So you adjust, just a little, enough to keep things smooth, enough so no one has to raise their voice, enough so the balance stays intact. And people call that grace. They call it maturity. They say you're easy to be around. What they don't see is how often you step back so everyone else can stand comfortably. You've learned to pause your truth mid-sentence, to swallow reactions before they reach your lips, to tell yourself, it's fine, it's not worth it, let it go, and you're very good at it, almost too good. There's a quiet cost to being the one who keeps things fair, a cost that doesn't show up right away. It shows up later, at night, in the way your chest feels heavy for no clear reason, in the way decisions exhaust you more than they should. Because balance, when it's carried alone, turns into weight. You didn't shrink because you lacked confidence. You shrank because you cared, because you believed harmony meant compromise, and compromise meant you should be the flexible one. So you bent again and again, until you started forgetting where your edges were. And here's the part I want you to hear gently, not as criticism, not as judgment, just truth. You can be kind and still take up space. You can be understanding without explaining yourself away. You can love peace without sacrificing your inner voice. The world taught you that conflict is dangerous, that rocking the boat means losing connection, so you became the anchor, steady, quiet, unmoving. But anchors aren't meant to live underwater forever. Somewhere along the way, your ability to hold everyone else steady came at the expense of your own breath. And maybe you've felt it recently, that subtle resistance inside you. That moment when you almost say something honest, then stop. Not because it's untrue, but because you're tired of managing how it will land. Let me ask you something, Libra. And don't rush to answer. What would happen if you stopped translating yourself for everyone else? Not in anger, not dramatically, just quietly choosing not to make yourself smaller anymore. That question may feel uncomfortable, even risky, because balance has been your identity for so long. But there is another kind of balance, one that doesn't ask you to disappear, one that doesn't require constant self-correction. You're not losing your softness, you're reclaiming your center. And as you sit with that thought, notice how your body responds. Not your mind, your body. Because what's coming next isn't about choosing sides, it's about choosing presence and learning how to stand there without apology. And as you sit with that feeling of reclaiming your center, something else begins to surface. Not loudly, not dramatically, just honestly. There's a tiredness in you now that no longer hides well. You notice it in small moments. When getting out of bed takes longer than it used to. When simple choices feel heavier than they should. When your mind drifts away from conversations you once cared deeply about. You're not overwhelmed by doing too much. You're exhausted from holding too much. Holding your reactions. Holding your truth. Holding everyone else's expectations in perfect alignment while quietly setting your own needs aside. And lately, that balance has started to crack. You might tell yourself you're just tired, that you need a weekend off, that things will feel better soon. But this fatigue is different. It sits deeper. It's emotional. It's the kind that sleep doesn't reach. You've probably noticed yourself pulling away from deeper conversations. Not because you don't care, but because you're afraid that if someone asks the right question, your voice might shake, or your eyes might give you away. So you keep it light, you keep it polite, you keep it moving. And no one questions it, because you've always been the composed one, the reasonable one, the one who holds it together. But Libra, let me say this softly. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This isn't you losing your edge. This is what happens when a sensitive soul has been strong for too long without being supported in return. You don't owe anyone more proof of your worth. Not through endurance, not through patience, not through silence. Your value was never measured by how much discomfort you could absorb without complaint. Somewhere inside you, a quieter voice has been trying to speak. Not demanding, not angry, just tired. Tired of translating yourself. Tired of adjusting your tone. Tired of being the steady ground while everyone else gets to fall apart. And here's something you may not have considered yet. What if this weariness isn't a sign that something is wrong with you? What if it's a signal that something in your life has run its course? Not everything that drains you is broken. Some things simply no longer fit the person you've become. You're allowed to outgrow roles. You're allowed to step back without explaining every reason. You're allowed to rest before you break. Let me ask you this, Libra, and take your time with it. If you stopped trying to prove your strength, who would you become in the quiet that followed? Just sit with that question. You don't need an answer yet. Because what's unfolding now isn't about pushing forward. It's about listening inward. And the next layer of this story will ask you to look gently at where you've been giving your energy without receiving nourishment in return. Stay with me. We're moving toward clarity now. And as that awareness settles in, something becomes clearer. Not all at once, more like a slow dawn. You start to realize that the exhaustion you feel did not come from nowhere. It grew quietly in places you kept returning to. Places that once felt familiar, safe, predictable. Maybe it was a relationship you stayed in because leaving felt irresponsible. Because you told yourself loyalty mattered more than how empty you felt. You learned how to show up, how to be fair, how to keep your word. Even when your heart stopped feeling nourished there. Or maybe it was a job that promised security, a steady rhythm, a sense of being needed. And for a long time, that was enough. Until one day, you noticed you were counting hours instead of moments, dragging yourself through mornings, wondering when work stopped feeling meaningful and started feeling like quiet erosion. Sometimes it is not a person or a place. Sometimes it is a role, the reliable one, the mediator, the strong one everyone leans on. You wear it so well that no one questions whether it still fits. And you stayed, not because it was good, but because it was known. You told yourself to try a little longer, to give it more time, to be patient. You believed endurance was proof of character. But here is something rarely spoken out loud. Not everything that is stable is sustaining. Not everything that feels responsible is aligned. There are environments that are not wrong. They are simply no longer meant for the version of you that exists now. You did not fail by outgrowing them. You evolved. Growth does not always announce itself with excitement. Sometimes it arrives as discomfort, as restlessness, as the subtle sense that you are living slightly out of sync with your own spirit. And Libra, that feeling you have been carrying, the one that whispers maybe there is more than this is not betrayal. It is honesty. You are allowed to leave spaces that no longer feed you. You are allowed to want joy alongside stability. You are allowed to choose environments where your presence is not just tolerated, but valued. Let me ask you something gently. When you imagine staying exactly where you are for the next few years, does your body soften or does it tense? Your body knows before your mind catches up. There is no shame in admitting that something has completed its purpose in your life. Completion is not destruction. It is closure. It is gratitude. It is the quiet acknowledgement that you have learned what you needed to learn there. And as you stand at this inner crossroads, you are not being pushed. You are being invited. Invited to notice where your energy goes quiet, where your light dims, where your voice feels smaller. Because what comes next is not about dramatic exits or burning bridges. It is about clarity, the kind that grows slowly, the kind that restores your breath, The kind that leads you toward spaces where you no longer have to convince yourself to stay. Stay with me. We are moving closer to that moment of recognition when you finally understand why this awareness is rising now and what it is preparing you to choose next. And somewhere between that clarity and the quiet invitation to choose differently, something inside you begins to shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, more like a subtle change in the air. The kind you feel before a storm breaks, or just after the night starts giving way to morning. You notice it in your thoughts first. You're not gripping as tightly anymore, not clinging to situations out of fear, not rehearsing worst-case scenarios the way you used to. The idea of leaving, of changing direction, doesn't paralyze you the same way. It still feels tender, but no longer terrifying. You catch yourself imagining a different rhythm of life. Quieter mornings, conversations that don't drain you, spaces where you don't have to constantly read between the lines or measure every word before you speak. And for the first time in a long while, that vision doesn't feel unrealistic. It feels deserved. This is important, Libra, because what's happening right now is not impulsive. It's not rebellion. It's not you running away. It's awareness, the kind that rises after a long season of endurance, the kind that doesn't shout but stands its ground. You begin to realize that staying is no longer the default choice, that loyalty does not require self-abandonment, that peace does not have to be negotiated at your expense. And maybe you surprise yourself by how calm this realization feels, by how steady your breath becomes when you think about choosing differently. That's your inner compass realigning. You've spent so much of your life making decisions based on what was fair, what was balanced, what would keep everything in place. But now there's a deeper question quietly asking for your attention. Not what is fair for everyone else, but what is honest for you. This is the instinct of the soul waking up, not to fight, not to demand, but to protect what is essential. It doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with clarity, a knowing that you can no longer unsee, a sense that the life you're meant to live requires more presence, more alignment, more truth. And here's something most people miss. Awakening does not mean you have all the answers. It simply means you can no longer ignore the questions. You might still feel unsure about the how, about the timing, about the reactions of others. That's okay. Awareness always arrives before certainty. Let me ask you something softly. When you picture yourself honoring this new understanding, what part of you feels relief? That relief is not accidental. It's a signal, a sign that your system recognizes safety in authenticity. You are not becoming someone else. You are returning to yourself, the version of you that existed before you learned to trade your needs for peace. And as this awareness continues to unfold, you may notice something else, a readiness, not to rush, but to close a chapter that has quietly completed its work in your life. We're approaching that threshold now, the place where understanding turns into choice, where insight prepares you for an ending that is not a loss, but a necessary release. Stay with me, because the next layer of this story will help you understand why some endings arrive with such intensity and how they make room for what you've been asking for all along. And as that readiness settles into your chest, there is a truth that can no longer stay unspoken. Not because you want drama, not because you crave disruption, but because something inside you has grown too honest to pretend any longer. There are endings that announce themselves quietly, Libra. They don't slam doors. They don't demand attention. They arrive as a steady knowing that a chapter has said everything it can say. You may feel it in the way your patience no longer stretches, in the way familiar conversations feel heavier than before, in the way your heart pauses, as if it already knows what your mind is still catching up to. This message does not avoid the truth. Something is coming to a close. And yes, it may hurt, because endings almost always do. They carry memories, effort, hope you once poured into something with sincerity. There may be tears, not because you regret the time you gave, but because you gave it honestly. There may be words spoken that finally draw a line, a sentence that rises from your chest and surprises even you. A quiet moment when you realize you cannot keep explaining yourself to stay somewhere your soul has already left. And here is what I want you to hear clearly. Not as comfort, but as truth. This ending is not happening because you are weak. It is happening because you have been strong for far too long in a place that asked you to disappear. You did not quit. You did not fail. You did not give up too soon. You stayed. You tried. You balanced. You endured, until endurance started to cost you your integrity. There is a kind of strength that looks like holding on, and there is a deeper kind of strength that knows when holding on becomes self-betrayal. You are stepping into the second kind now, and that can feel disorienting. Because for someone like you, who values fairness and harmony, choosing an ending can feel like breaking a promise. But Libra, listen to this carefully. The promise you are keeping now is the one you made to yourself before you ever learned how to carry everyone else. Endings are not punishments. They are thresholds. They appear when a lesson has integrated, when a season has done its work, when your inner world has outgrown the container it was in. You are not meant to stay where your spirit has outpaced the space around it. And even if the ending comes with sadness, it also comes with relief. A subtle loosening in your body. A breath you didn't realize you had been holding. Let me ask you something softly. When you imagine this chapter finally closing, do you feel grief or do you feel permission? Often, it is both. That is how you know it is real. You don't need to rush this ending. You don't need to dramatize it. You don't need to justify it to everyone. You only need to be honest with the part of you that can no longer pretend. Because this ending is not the end of your story. It is the clearing of space. And what comes after will not require you to abandon yourself to belong. Stay with me. Because beyond this release, there is a quieter horizon forming, one that does not demand endurance, one that meets you where you are. And after that release, after the quiet closing of a door you once leaned your weight against, something unfamiliar begins to appear. Not with noise, not with urgency, not with promises that glitter too brightly to trust. What comes next moves differently. It arrives without asking you to perform, without testing how much you can endure, without requiring you to translate yourself into something more acceptable. You may barely notice it at first. A conversation that feels easy, a moment of calm where you expect tension, a space where your shoulders drop without effort. And you pause. Because peace like that can feel strange when you have spent so long bracing yourself. This is not a miracle designed to impress you. It does not need drama to prove its value. It does not announce itself as destiny. It simply feels right. Maybe it shows up as a person, someone steady, someone who listens without waiting for their turn to speak, someone who does not need you to be smaller so they can feel larger. You notice how you breathe around them, how your words arrive without rehearsing, How silence no longer feels like something you must fill. Or maybe what arrives is a direction, a path that respects your time, your energy, your inner rhythm. A place where your presence is not measured by how much you can give away, but by who you are when you are fully there. And there is another possibility, one we rarely name. What arrives might simply be you, unburdened, unfiltered, no longer negotiating your worth. The version of you that remembers how it feels to move through life without constant self-correction. This is important, Libra, because you are wired to notice imbalance. You feel it before others do. So when something feels calm instead of chaotic, steady instead of draining, mutual instead of one-sided, pay attention. Not everything meaningful enters your life with intensity. Some of the most life-changing experiences are almost quiet enough to miss. They do not rush you. They do not chase you. They wait for you to notice. And only those who have walked through storms recognize the sound of gentle water. You may find yourself questioning this ease, wondering if it can be trusted. If something is missing, that is a natural reflex. When you are used to struggle, peace can feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Let me ask you something softly. When you imagine leaning into what feels calm, does your body relax or does it brace? Your body remembers what safety feels like, even if your mind is still catching up. You are not meant to rebuild your life on tension. You are not meant to earn rest through exhaustion. You are not meant to prove your value by suffering quietly. What is coming to you now meets you differently. It does not ask you to sacrifice yourself for harmony. It offers harmony without erasure. And you do not need to rush toward it. You do not need to name it yet. You only need to allow it space to arrive. Because this chapter is not about chasing something new. It is about recognizing what no longer asks you to disappear. And as you sit with that possibility, as you let yourself imagine a life that feels lighter without being shallow, strong without being rigid, you may sense something else forming. A deeper choice. One that asks not what you should do next, but who you are willing to be when no one is asking you to hold everything together. Stay with me, because the final message is not about what you gain. It is about what you choose to protect as you step forward. And now, Libra, as everything begins to settle, as the echoes of what you have released fade into the background, there is one last thing I want to sit with you in. Not advice, not instruction, just presence. You do not need to rush forward from here. So many people confuse movement with healing. They believe the next thing will fix the quiet ache, the next connection, the next plan, the next distraction. But you already know better than that. Your soul is not asking for speed. It is asking for space. Space to breathe without explaining yourself. Space to rest without guilt. Space to exist without being useful to anyone else for a while. This is not the moment to prove anything. Not your strength. Not your independence. Not your resilience. You have already proven all of that through years of endurance that no one ever fully saw. Right now, choosing yourself does not look dramatic. It looks ordinary, gentle, almost invisible from the outside. It looks like listening to your body when it asks you to slow down. Like honoring your emotions instead of analyzing them away. Like allowing silence to be healing instead of something to escape. And if you feel an urge to fill the space quickly, to replace what ended with something new, pause. That urge doesn't mean you are empty. It means you are human, and you have been living in survival mode for longer than you realized. You do not need to fill the space. You need to feel it. There is wisdom in this stillness, a kind that cannot speak when everything is crowded. Libra, you are allowed to rest without earning it. You are allowed to take care of your body not as a project, but as a living, breathing home. You are allowed to feel tired and not label it as weakness, to feel uncertain and not rush toward false certainty. Let me ask you something softly. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to simply be without becoming something for someone else? You have spent so much of your life responding, adjusting, balancing. This chapter asks you to receive, not praise, not validation, but alignment. To notice what feels nourishing now, what feels calm instead of consuming, what feels honest instead of impressive. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing anything. You are exactly where you need to be to reconnect with the part of yourself that never stopped knowing the way. And if this message reached you today, if something in your chest softened as you listened, trust that. Trust that you are being guided gently, not pushed, led quietly, not forced. You are not losing your balance. You are redefining it. A balance that includes you, your needs, your limits, your truth. So take your time. Let the next step reveal itself naturally. You do not need to chase it. What is meant for you recognizes you when you are at rest. And as you move forward from here, carry this with you. You are not here to disappear for the sake of peace. You are here to live in a way that feels whole. If this message stayed with you, if it spoke to something you haven't named out loud yet, stay connected. There is more ahead. And you do not have to walk toward it alone. And before you go, Libra, just take one more breath with me. Because messages like this don't arrive to entertain you. They arrive to wake something up, quietly, lovingly, at exactly the moment you're ready to hear them. If something in this story lingered in your chest, if a single sentence felt like it was written just for you, that wasn't coincidence. That was resonance. You're not alone in this season of choosing yourself. There are other Libras listening right now who are learning how to rest without guilt, how to release without regret, how to trust their inner balance again. If you feel called, share a word in the comments, just one. Peace, release, clarity, or simply, I'm here. Let this be a place where you don't have to explain yourself. If this message helped you breathe a little easier, tap like so this energy can reach the Libra who needs it next. And if you want to stay connected to these moments of clarity, subscribe and walk this journey with us. Trust yourself, Libra. You're not falling behind. You're realigning. And remember, this is not the end of the message. It's the doorway. The journey continues. And the next message will find you right on time.